question marks, a la Shmoop. We all know what simple direct questions look like. What's 2 plus 2? Is this bread gluten-free? What's the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? Well, because these are direct questions, they require question marks, these things. There are other scenarios, however, where you may be unsure about whether or not a question mark is needed. For example, take this simple declarative sentence. Jim has 2 coconuts and he's banging them together. What if you were surprised to see Jim with those coconuts, though? How would you express that surprise? You would add a question mark to the end of the sentence to get Jim has 2 coconuts and he's banging them together? Then there's the question flurry. This isn't a winter weather condition you encounter in the Midwest, but rather a string of add-on questions tacked on to an initial direct question. Yeah, like that. That's the equation. For example, if you were desperate to stay out for as long as possible on Saturday night, you might ask your mom, "Can I stay out until 11, 11:05, 11:15, 11:30? Or if you needed more time to finish your algebra exam, you might ask your teacher, "May I have 10 more minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, the rest of the day?" Yeah, like that. Each add-on question gets its own question mark. Also, don't capitalize the first letter of an add-on question unless the question could stand on its own as a sentence. Let's move on to tag questions. Say you have the statement, "That's the holy hand grenade." Tack a tag question onto that sentence so that you end up with, "That's the holy hand grenade, isn't it?" And suddenly your statement requires a question mark. Next come indirect questions. Examples of indirect questions include, "I wonder why the Black Knight is so delusional," and "I wonder why the French use farm animals as weaponry." Because statements where you wonder about things are indirect rather than direct questions, well, they do not end with question marks. But what happens when you mix direct questions with indirect questions? Do rivers run backward? Does the world explode? Well, no. You would write out a direct-indirect question to read, the question is, who were the knights who say "ni"? Where you place a comma after the first clause and a question mark after the direct question. Yeah, like that. You could also avoid the direct-indirect question nonsense altogether by writing, everyone wondered who the knights who say "ni" were. The grammar rules for question marks might raise a few questions, but as long as you practice what you've learned, you should be able to triumph over this particular grammar conundrum. Just like the Black Knight. Oh wait. Subscribe to check out more equally fantabulous videos. You should see the subscribe button just below this one. If you're having trouble locating it, we recommend you watch our video, How to Find the Subscribe Button.